Joining us now is former House Representative Pete Hoekstra. He represented Michigan's 2nd Congressional District for 18 years and was also the top Republican on the House Intelligence Committee. Welcome back to Newsmax TV.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Well, we're happy to have you here. This week, the S&P downgraded the U.S. credit rating outlook. You spent many years in Congress. What kind of pressure does this put on the debate in Congress over whether to raise the debt ceiling?
Well, I think it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the president and Congress to actually move forward. I came out of the business world, and if the company I've been working for had its debt rating questioned or lowered, that would be a cause for serious concern within the company. It's got to be a cause. It's got to be a cause of serious concern for Congress and the president. They need to act, and they need to act soon.
Now, many Republicans say that they will not vote for a debt limit increase unless there's a deal on long-term spending cuts. In your view, what kind of quid pro quo should the GOP accept?
Well, I think they really ought to look where the money is, not on discretionary spending. See what they can get on entitlements. That's where the money is. That's where the exploding spending is going to be over the next decade. See what kind of deal that they can get. I think Senator Rubio has said, he'll only vote for something if it has entitlement reform. And people have said, well, you can't do it in 30 days. You can't do it in 45 days. And I think the real answer is you can't afford to wait any longer. You got to at least take some steps to get this moving in the right direction. Give people confidence that we are going to get this done.
Well, some Republicans in the Senate, Jim DeMint, Mike Lee, they say that they are prepared to filibuster the debt ceiling vote if a balanced budget amendment isn't passed. Is it time to pass an amendment?
I think it's probably been long past due to pass this type of an amendment. Whether this is the right place to do it or not, I don't know. We'll let them work through that process. But they've got to take some substantive step now. That could be one of them.
Now, Democrats and President Obama are predicting draconian consequences if the debt ceiling isn't raised. In your view, what is the fallout for Americans if the debt ceiling isn't raised?
Well, I think there's going to be a short-term hit, a lack of confidence again in Congress and the government to get things done. Concern about the viability of the debt that we have out there. But this issue will get resolved. Will it be done professionally? Will it be done at the last minute? Those are the kinds of things that we have to look forward to and we have to evaluate. It will get resolved.
Now, I want to tap into your insight since you served on the House Intelligence Committee. Homeland Security Secretary Napolitano today abandoned color-coded terror alerts for warning levels of just imminent and elevated. What is your take on the new alert system?
I don't think it's much better than what we had before. Nobody knew what the different colors meant. I heard this elevated and imminent. It's kind of like, well, which one's worse? And what's normal? What people want to know is, number one, that the right mechanisms are in place to keep them safe as they get on an airplane. The other thing that they want to know is, okay, how long is it going to take to go through the security line? If they change levels, does that mean I have to get there an hour and a half before boarding time, an hour before? That's the real concern. How long is the line going to be? What can I take through security and what can't I take through security? And the system has to be working to protect me.
Now, the TSA is still conducting those sometimes invasive pat-down type screenings. You saw that video that went viral of that 6-year-old girl getting a pat-down. In your view, how much of our personal freedoms should we be willing to sacrifice for national security?
Well, I think you have to. I'm not sure that you sacrifice. I mean, in a case like that, it's all about common sense. I mean, we've all seen examples where you go through TSA and you kind of look and say, who's managing this process? Who's giving them the directives? And they're taking steps that don't make any sense to us. Some of the, going through a search needs to happen. All right, you shouldn't be invasive. You can make the right decisions if you just exercise some common sense. Who really thinks that a 6-year-old is going to be a threat?
Napolitano on the Morning Joe program this morning said that the U.S. still remains vulnerable to attacks. Based on your inside knowledge, what is the threat to Americans today, and has it intensified under President Obama?
Well, using her terms, it's probably elevated and imminent. We're also coming up on the anniversary of 9/11, the 10-year anniversary. I think that with the events that we've seen over the last year and a half, homegrown terrorism, Hassan, and a whole series of other events here in the United States, and the fixation that Al-Qaeda and radical jihadists have always had on airplanes, I think it's only a matter of time before they try again to attack us either on an airplane or somewhere else. We have not eliminated the threat. All of the propaganda that Al-Qaeda is putting out there, Inspire magazine and these types of things, are a clear indication they are still focused on having domestic attacks in the U.S.
So we cannot let our guards down.
I don't think so.
To gas prices, Americans are really feeling the pain at the pump. Experts are telling us that there is a glut of oil worldwide, yet the Saudis are talking about cutting back on production. Now, most Americans are expecting to pay about $5 per gallon before this summer. Some already are. Considering his ban on domestic oil drilling, does President Obama deserve part of the blame for these higher oil prices?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you send out the clear signal that says America's not going to be producing any more fossil fuels, we're going to clamp down on this, the rest of the world just kind of takes a look at it and saying, wow, what an opportunity. America is a major consumer of energy. They're not going to be developing their own energy. We will develop it. We will sell it to the U.S. And we will get America's cash. It's a great opportunity for everybody else in the world and not for Americans. We ought to explore more on land, offshore drilling. Sure, we ought to go into places like Anwar and think about it. When we buy a barrel of oil, we take that $105 and we ship it overseas and we never see it again. If we explore in the U.S. for either oil or natural gas or coal, we are putting Americans to work. We are investing that money in the U.S. and when we spend that dollar in the U.S., it probably gets spent another 4 or 5 times, and we'd be creating jobs. Plus, it's also a national security issue.
Do you think voters will make President Obama pay for his energy policies in 2012?
I'm sure they will. They'll just go back to candidate Obama and what he was saying about George Bush and high high gasoline prices, and this president's record on managing energy, producing more energy. Is much worse than what President Bush had. Sure, he'll be held accountable because he railed against this.
Now, since we last talked, you have decided against running for U.S. Senate in 2012. Just talk to us about how you came about to this decision, why you're not running, and what you plan to do instead.
Well, it's a deeply personal decision. So Diane and we spent a tremendous amount of time looking at what we wanted to do over the next few years in our family life. A campaign is grueling. I just came off of a campaign for governor that we weren't successful in, but we weren't, we loved every minute of it. It was a great opportunity to meet the people of Michigan. We were just not ready to step back into a full-blown state campaign. I'm going to stay active. I just spoke to a Tea Party. I just did a couple of Lincoln Day dinners. We're going to stay active in politics and the policy issues that are out there because I care passionately about them. I've got a lot of background in some of these areas, and I want to continue doing that. We just didn't think that elective office was the best place to go right now.
Of the potential GOP candidates for president in 2012, who do you like right now?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of candidates out there. No one's clearly captured the imagination of the field right now, except perhaps Donald Trump. I've not made a commitment in the race. I think it will take a little while before we make that kind of a commitment to see exactly the kind of campaigns that they're going to put together, the kinds of issues that they're going to run on. And from my perspective, it's also very important that we select a candidate that can beat President Obama. We can't survive another 4 years with the kind of failed leadership that he has provided us.
Do you think Donald Trump would make a good candidate? Like you, he has a business background.
He's got a business background. I think in today's world, you might be really surprised. I think in any traditional year, you'd say, no, he wouldn't make a good candidate. I think in this kind of environment where you've got someone, you can see that he clearly says what he believes, what he's thinking. He may resonate very, very well with the voters. I think voters are looking for a non-traditional politician in 2012. They're looking at Washington, and they're saying, why do we want to elect another career politician or someone like that? And so, he may be the mystery or the surprise candidate in this whole mix.
And we'll be watching closely.
I'm sure, and I will be too. Thank you.
Representative Pete Hoekstra, thanks so much for joining us. It was great to see you here.
Hey, good, thanks.